high. It's very high. The 40 degrees in India, although it's common in North India,
Yes.
but even in India, we are used to hot temperatures, but 40 is really very high.
Yes, really, really high temperature. Yes.
It was so nice of you to accept our invitation, sir.
I mean, it is an honor for me to be here, and this the opportunity to share.
Yes, sir.
The experience is always something that excites me a lot, because
thank you.
Ayurveda medicine is my life. So everyone is happy to speak about life.
Yes. Sir, before we start the formal, I'll just give you a small introduction of the department.
Yes.
The Department of Integrative Medicine here at NIMHANS. The genesis is, it's been since a very long time, research and services in yoga and Ayurveda has been part of NIMHANS since quite some time. Dr. B.N. Gangadhar, you have met him already.
Yes.
And he is also there in today's, he has joined us in today's program. He and Dr. D. Nagaraja. So he was also the former director of NIMHAN. So, it was their brainchild that Ayurveda, yoga, and such systems, indigenous Indian systems of medicine should be part of mental health and neurosciences to begin with, because there is a lot of relevance in this area. So in 2019 October, we started the department. And then, of course, the COVID was there. But in spite of that, in 3 years, we were able to have own infrastructure. We got a building constructed, our laboratories constructed. And then we started the outpatient department. The outpatient department, we get referrals. We have more people walking into us with mental health and neurology. We get more of neurological cases. Of course, we also get a lot of psychiatric illnesses also. So our model is the first of its kind in the country, sir. The model is we have a psychiatrist, we have a yoga expert, and an Ayurveda expert. All three of us, we look at the patient at the same time. We consult the patient at the same time, which means, the treatment is optimized at the level of the physicians. We don't leave anything. We don't leave the patient guessing as to what he should do, which system he should follow, for how many days he should do, and so on. To solve that, we optimize the treatment. How much ever yoga is necessary, how much ever Ayurveda is necessary, and how much of modern psychiatry or neurological medications are necessary are optimized. And then we treat them in the outpatient basis. So this is very unique because most of the models that are being followed are the patient goes to various consultants. But then the frequently asked question for him is, what should I do, and when should I do, for how much time should I do? These are the questions for which he doesn't get answers. So to solve that, we did this. Actually, foresee that this endeavor should lead to integrated health practitioner who will be able to have knowledge of all the best of all medicines in the interest of the patient, keeping aside the boundaries of systems. So after that, we also have now a 30-bedded hospital where we, give inpatient care to patients. We get a lot of neurological patients here. Around 70% of them are neurology based. Most of the cases which we treat are demyelinating disorders, neurodegenerative disorders, Parkinson's, demyelinating neuropathies, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophies. These are, most of the cases that we get. post-stroke rehabilitation also we do in neurology. Apart from that, psychiatric cases, we get treatment-resistant schizophrenia, chronic depression, bipolar. So we get such people also who come and seek our treatment. We have a the institute has been, and the institute and the Indian government has been generous enough to have given us a huge infrastructure. We have yoga halls, individual yoga therapy rooms, around 10 Panchakarma therapy centers, which are all well equipped. And we give free treatment to patients who are below poverty line. And then, so we have sufficient. So far, we do around, just last month, we have reached 1,200 Panchakarma therapies in Ayurveda. And also our yoga sessions are similarly, in high demand. We run daily yoga sessions for psychiatry patients as well as neurology well-being sessions. Tele-yoga sessions are on, and during COVID, we introduced the well-being sessions, and a lot of patients availed the benefits. We keep public educative programs, lectures also. The website, in a website, we have the YouTube channel which people prescribe. So in 3 years, we've been able to do clinical services and the infrastructure. Apart from that, research wise, we have around 11 to 12 projects now, which worth around 14 crores. So we have ambitious, we have one ambitious project known as Yantra. Now this yoga and neuroscience accelerator research, translational research. So this program aims at looking at the patients of neuropsychiatry, the first degree relatives of patients of neuropsychiatry, and also normal population on the basis of Prakriti. And then find out the neuroinflammatory markers, genome analysis, gut microbiome, and neuroimaging, and try to link if these mechanisms are showing any kind of changes in all these three categories: normal individuals, first degree relatives, and patients of neuropsychiatry. This is one part. Another part is clinical trials in multiple sclerosis, in schizophrenia, in mood disorders, and in Alzheimer's dementia. We are trying to look at integrated Ayurveda and yoga intervention pre and post. This is first of its kind study that we have already been granted, and we just have to initiate the project in a month or two. So this is the research. We have now courses. We have PhD course in integrative mental health. We have postdoctoral fellowship courses in integrative psychiatry and integrative mental health. We have MSc yoga, and then this year we were able to start MD Manasaroga. So this is our flagship program from the NIMHANS. We have named it MD Manasaroga because that's how it was recognized. They will be trained in all aspects of modern psychiatry, Ayurvedic psychiatry, yoga interventions, and all the recent advances in psychiatry. So this will be there. So in summary, sir, this was the activities that we have done in the past 3 years, the courses, the research aspects, the clinical services, and also the academics. So small introduction to the department.
Congratulations, because your activities are really impressive, really impressive. And actually, you are making a dream true with this kind of activities. And actually, this is what I will speak about in my lecture, because what is the next step for medicine, for neurology, for medicine, for the knowledge is really to get a new paradigm of science, a new paradigm of medicine. And this will be given by the interface between the different system of knowledge. And this is something that is very important. Actually, in my lecture now, I will speak about the whole process of thinking that we elaborated, that which is behind our activity and what we are proposing also in our intervention, not only in neurology but in medicine in general. And so we will have this chance. One important thing is that we have to decide actually in some way what in which way the two systems of knowledge they have to interact, because they look at different things.
Yes.
They look at different things. So, and this is not bad, because they are not, one is wrong and one is correct. They are two different perspectives. It's like two darshan, two points of view. And we have to find a way in Charaka, in other classic Ayurvedic literature, you find several darshana that, even if they may look in some way say different things, but they are used according to the point of view. And I think this is the way that we have to proceed in this view. Yeah, and for doing this, as I will tell, that we have to start from the beginning. So we have to really find what are the common parts.
Yes, sir. So before we begin, I would be happy to introduce Dr. Shivarama Varambelli, who's the head of the department. Sir, is it okay that we record your lecture?
Oh yes, very much. Yes, I would like to have a recording also after.
Sure. We also have Dr. A.B. Talley, who is the senior most neurologist of NIMHANS. So welcome to this program, sir. Let me introduce Dr. Antonio Morandi. Dr. Antonio Morandi is a medical doctor, specialist in neurology, and has graduated in Ayurveda from Ayurveda Academy, Pune, and Joytinat International College of Ayurveda. He is the founder and director of Ayurvedic Point at Milan, Italy, and president of Italian Scientific Society for Ayurvedic Medicine. He was awarded the honorary doctorate Ayurveda Acharya by the Ayurvedic Institute, Ashtavaidyan Trishur Taikat Moose, Senne Aushadashala, India, in 2003. And he is the head of medical education of European Institute of Vedic Studies, Switzerland, and professor of Ayurveda at Master Course in Health System, Traditional Non-Conventional Medicine, University of Milano, Baika, Italy. He is a member of Non-Conventional Medicines Committee of the Medical Council of Milan Province, Italy, where he coordinates the register of medical doctors with expertise in Ayurveda. Dr. Morandi is actively involved in several international clinical research projects in Ayurveda. He is a member of Research Advisory Board of Avatar AVT Institute for Advanced Research, Coimbatore, India, and also co-head of Scientific Board of International Network for Development of Research in Ayurveda. Dr. Morandi is the editor-in-chief, International Office of the Scientific Journal, Ancient Science of Life. He is a member of various committees, editorial boards, and author of numerous publications. Dr. Morandi is a co-editor of innovative book, An Integrated View of Health and Well-Being, Bridging Indian and Western Knowledge. So, so during his before he got into Ayurveda Institute, he's been a very popular neurologist in Italy and has served in many of the departments like geriatric departments, then cell culture laboratories, and many such neuroscience related endeavors. So he accepted our invitation to address us here. We thought it was most appropriate for an institute like NIMHANS, which is working on integrative medicine and in neuropathy, Welcome welcome to Nimhans again, sir. And I would request you to please take over for your lecture.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will share my screen now. And let's see, where is my screen? Hold on 1 second, because
you have a PPT to share, sir?
yes, but you know, the problem is that with Mac, you never know in which screen you are, because okay, let me see if I can. Okay, here it is. No, this is not the one. This is the one. Okay. Now, let me see 1 second, because okay. What is it? I cannot find it. Oh, gee. Desktop one. Okay. Oh, let me see one thing. Can you see it? Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can see the screen. Okay. So this is the title. Is fine. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Please tell me if there is any problem with the the transition of the things. So thank you very much to everyone for having invited me. This the National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience, the Integrative Medicine Department. It is an honor for me to speak and to share what is actually the purpose of my life, as I already said. It is, Ayurveda, and how Ayurveda can match and can interface with modern medicine. Let's start from a consideration. That the epistemologies, that means the origin, the rules on which they are based, of Ayurveda, yoga, and modern medicine are very different. This is something that we have absolutely to consider, because this is the root of everything. So we have to make some kind of consideration about this. The conceptual framework in which nature, science are interpreted depends on historical, cultural, social, and economic factors. For these reasons, we have different kinds of medicine that are blossoming all over the world. But, however, nature is one, notwithstanding the human diverse viewpoints. And so what we have to pursue is a unified view that will derive only by a collaboration of multiple perspectives. How come that there is this difference? The difference, as I said, it depends on many factors: cultural, ecological. The ecosystem are different, the biodiversity is different, the climate is different, everything is different between East and West. And so what we have is that in the thousands of years, the attention of the West is directed out, and the one of the East inward. The balance, so in the West, it's sought outside, while in the East, it's seen inside. And of course, when we speak about an application on the medical field, a healthcare paradigm, in the West is the biomedical paradigm, which is made of things that are outside. And instead, we have the paradigm like Ayurveda in the East. But as I said, these two different systems, they are based on different paradigm and this different way of looking at reality. What are the differences? The difference from between a modern, let's say Western, and the traditional way of thinking. The modern is experimental, and the traditional Ayurveda and yoga is experiential. The modern is based on the analysis and the traditional is based on synthesis. The modern is based on the analysis of objects, while the traditional is based on the analysis of relationship between the objects. So the attention is focused outside, while in the traditional system is focused inside. And while the modern knowledge system tends to standardize, the application and the activities, the traditional way system of knowledge is dynamic, and so it tends to find a different solution and different according to the different view. And of course, one important thing is that the model is a static model, while the model of the traditional thinking is mainly based on transformation. And at the end of this, the modern is way of thinking is based on the shape, and from the shape, the modern thinking derives the function, while the traditional system, the Ayurveda system, is based on the fact that the function is deriving the shape. So there are two different ways of thinking. So they cannot be really and fully integrated, because if we fully integrate the two systems, we end up in losing the identity of one of both the systems. Either one system engulfs the other, or there is the loss of both of them. So how we have to find a way to have these two systems interact in some way, that these two perspectives of the observation of life can be used at the same time for arriving to better conclusion for our life and our patients. We have to carefully examine the difference and the similarities of the two systems, because if we are able to make these considerations, we can find a synergistic way of action that will bring to a synergistic therapeutic strategy that will exploit the strength of both systems, the ability of Ayurveda's inclusive and systemic observation, and the analytical and technological ability of modern medicine. So these are the two sides that we have to connect together. Is not difficult. It's not a dream. It's something that we can do. Nature does continuously this kind of synergistic strategy, and in fact, if we use the approach of Ayurveda, which is the Lokapurusha Samya, that is the problem solving through the observation of nature, we see that, for example, in nature, there are several examples that we can take on how two systems which are different, they can interact without losing their identities, but exchanging information which are useful to both systems. And one of these systems is given by the gap junction. The gap junction, there was the description of, there was one of the clip. The gap junction is the concept of two cells that are getting in touch one with the other without, changing one, without being melted one with the other, but through this interface, there is the exchange of information that is important for the life of both cells. So we can take the idea of gap junction concept to use this idea for interacting, to making interact the two systems of knowledge. For example, we can think that Ayurveda and Vedic science and modern medicine and modern science, they can interact and be in touch and be interfaced through the commonalities. Commonalities are points that these two different epistemology have in common. Through these commonalities, we can find a way to communicate information and to change the Ayurvedic and the modern medicine point of view in such a way that the two systems can be synergistic and go together. How can we do this? The important thing, as I said, is to look at commonalities, not at the difference, because if you look at the difference, we will never get to the point. On this basis, we presented a few years ago, and we are working on this model, the model of a multiple collaborative system, which is called collaborative medicine and science. This system is a system that involve three different steps for the making this kind of collaboration. One is the reformulation of Ayurveda epistemology. One is the modeling of Ayurveda. One is the localization of Ayurveda. I don't want to enter now in the whole strategy of collaborative medicine and science, because what we need now is just the first point, because we have to get through at the end to what is the application to neurologists. And the reformulation of Ayurveda epistemology is based, according to my opinion, in one very simple point, that modern medicine is based on chemistry, but Ayurveda is based on physics. And chemistry is based on physics. This makes a difference in the perspective between Ayurveda and modern medicine, but modern medicine and Ayurveda are dealing with the same reality, but at two different levels. From this view, we can see that, for example, we have this kind of two levels, physics and chemistry, Ayurveda and modern medicine. That is the level of a division of a reality made of objects or a reality made of relationship. That, in a way, is in the essence, is the difference between the modern knowledge system and the Western modern system and the traditional modern knowledge system of any kind of tradition, not only Ayurveda, not only the Indian, but all the traditional knowledge system have this kind of view of the nature as a network of relationship, and this network of relationship are they follow the rule of physics. Chemistry is something that is an elaboration of this view, and is a kind of two different levels. One level in which you see the object, and another level in which you see the relationship between these objects. So modern medicine and Ayurveda, they are not dealing with two different things. They are dealing with the same reality, but at two different levels. And we have to keep in mind this, because this is the secret of everything. We don't have to say that Ayurveda is better or modern medicine is better than the other, because they're dealing with two different levels. What we have to do is to connect these two levels in some way, that we are dealing with the same at the same time with both levels. Beginning of everything, we take, for example, Samkhya, the Samkhya Darshana, and that is the Darshana on which most of Ayurveda, along with Vaisheshika and other, is based, and also yoga is based. We can see that at the base of the Samkhya vision, there is the Purusha-Prakriti interaction. This Purusha-Prakriti interaction, we can assume that is much more similar to what is called the breaking of symmetry, that is theorized by modern physics, especially the theory of strings of modern physics, that in some way is illustrate the beginning of everything. So the Purusha-Prakriti interaction is similar to the breaking of symmetry. That means that is the alteration of an absolute state of quiet that there was before, and then at a certain point there was this spontaneous alteration and breaking of symmetry that gave the rise that originates three different phases, and these three different phases are what we call Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas. That means tendency to the movement, balance, and resistance to the movement. So these are the three phases that derive from the breaking of symmetry. And if we plot these three phases, we realize that three phases are nothing else than the formation in the phases of oscillation. That means the phases of a vibration, the phases of a primordial vibration, which is according to exactly what with the string theory says, that at the beginning of the reality, there is a monodimensional string that is of the length of the dimension of the Planck, that is 10 to the minus 35 meters. That means very small, but this is the primordial vibration according to Samkhya and according to Ayurveda. And according to Samkhya and to the Indian system of knowledge is coherent with the expression of what we call Om. So Om is the expression, is the sound expression of the primordial vibration, which is the expression of the Purusha Prakriti interaction, which is the Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas phases, which they accord to the primordial vibration, which is forecast and theorized by the string theory. So you see that we are finding commonalities between the epistemology, from a modern epistemology and from a classical epistemology. They are saying the same thing. So our reality, in some way, is based on one string. That means one primordial vibration. That means Om, which is the matrika of the reality. This from the string vibration says that from the different interaction of these primordial strings between, summatory and extinctory reaction, we find a more complex vision, and the reality, according to the string continuity, then after at a higher dimension, it manifests like particles, atoms, and like this. And this is the same view that in some way Samkhya and is proposing. So we have a simple vibration, this simple plus another simple vibration with a different frequency, then we have a complex vibration. And from this on, we have the manifestation of whole the reality. And we see that the whole the reality is has this kind of common point between the modern view, the modern physics view, the view of physics, and the view of the Darshana. Samkhya string theory, Panchamahabhuta, particles matter. Panchamahabhuta, they derives from the primordial vibration and the string, which is a vibration. Both of them, Panchamahabhuta and particles matter, they manifest with properties. And this is a very important point because we can perceive these properties. So we have the Bhuta, the Panchamahabhuta, that are expression of several complexity of vibration, which can be perceived by Indriya, which are the correspective complexity of the same Bhuta, but for the same Bhuta for the perceiver. And the interaction and the information of this kind of interaction is called Guna. So the Guna, from the physics point of view, they can called as a phase interference between the vibration of the Bhuta and the vibration of the Bhuta that are forming the Indriya. So there is this phase interference which can be constructive or destructive, and for this reason in Ayurveda the Indriya are specialized for each Bhuta, because if you have an Indriya and the Bhuta, they have a constructive phase interference, and this constructive phase interference means an amplification of the signal that results in what we call perception. This is something very important, because what we have to arrive at the end is the fact that modern science can see the value of Guna and can see how that Guna is something that can be measured also in modern science. This is what I want to arrive at this point. So after this, we have these Guna, which are the phase interference, which is what we call perception. If we want to explain in a modern point of view, modern physics point of view, we can say that we have three different, the three different moments, Raja, Sattva, and Tamas, can be expressed in three different states. One is cohesion, one is motion, and another one is transformation. Each of these states is characterized by cohesion and density, is what the interaction between motion and cohesion are expressed. Motion and cohesion, when they interact, they express in consistency and density. Motion and transformation, when they interact, they express in temperature and time. And cohesion and transformation, when they interact, they manifest in shape and structure. This is what can be seen from a modern point of view, but this is actually what a Guna is. And we can define the Guna as a simultaneous knowledge and contextualization of data and their dynamic cause-effect relationship. So a Guna is the simultaneous knowledge and contextualization of data and their dynamic cause-effect relationship, which is at the beginning, as we have seen, a phase interference. And the different Guna, these are the 20 Guna which are described which are used normally in Ayurveda, the Gurva, the Guna, they are nothing else by can be translated in different ways, with these terms which are very common and understandable by modern physics. So Guna are something that we can translate in modern physics. Guna is something that we can measure, even from a modern point of view. And we know that a coherent example of Guna is nothing else than a conceptual item which is called dosha, which is a conceptual item because they are a collection of Guna. And that a coherent example of dosha are grouped in functional items which are called dhatu. And that when we have a coherence of dhatu, we have what is called ojas. So ojas is the end of a series of coherence of systems. This coherence of systems actually is what is the final goal of Ayurveda, according to Charaka. We have to result in the coherence, in the excellency of dhatu at the end. And so if we can maintain the system coherence, we can maintain the health, and we can maintain ojas. So the system that has to maintain the coherence, this means that the system has to be able to, in some way, to adapt to the change of the environment. And this is something that we can see very easily in nature. And for example, what is this here, for example, is a flock of birds that you can see is fantastic because it behaves like an organism, because the purpose of the flock of birds is something which is independent from the single bird, but is given by the single bird. You cannot predict, observing the single bird, the behavior of the flock of birds, but the flock of birds has a behavior which is independent from the behavior of the single birds. This is what happens in our organism. If we think that a single bird is a single cell of our organism, our organism has to maintain the coherence of, in this case, like this flock of birds, because this flock of birds, the coherence of this flock of birds is the survival for the birds, because the behavior of the flock of birds is the behavior that bring the birds where there is more food, where there is a different kind of, temperature of air, and so on. So the survival of the single bird, the survival of the flock, they are absolutely connected. And the behavior of the flock of birds is a coherent behavior, and if the flock of birds maintains this coherence, it maintains the health of the system and of the single birds. So the capacity to adapt and to maintain the system coherence is what is called health and is what is called ojas. This is the meaning of health. Look at this other example, and this is very, very nice. This is a fish, and then you will see this is a school of fish, and then you see how the school of fish, and this is a flock of birds, and how the school of fish react with a predator. They divide, but they come back to the shape. You see? Now the predator enter again, the system in some way opens, and then the system come back again. This is what happens to an healthy system. And this is what happened to an healthy also human system. Because a healthy human system is the system that is able to adapt continuously to the transformation. And when there is a sickness, this adaptation is put to a high stress. And when there is a healing, this means that the system regain its original shape. And this is the meaning of healing. This is the meaning of how health is important, and how health can be seen as an adaptive system, and how a disease is just a different state of health. A disease is not something that you can an external element. A disease is a incapacity of the system to regain its coherence after a stimuli that disrupted this coherence. This is another scheme in which you can see what I was saying. This is a simulation at the computer. So, higher complexity means higher adaptability, higher health. That means, higher ojas, lower complexity, lower adaptability, lower health, and means lower ojas. And actually, the loss of complexity and the simplification of physiological pathways is something that represents the typical features of many diseases. This is also something that is very well known in modern medicine. And in the aging process, we have this loss of complexity, which is very much connected with the concept of Vata. No? Vata is a kind of gives the information of separation, gives the information of irregularity, the information of disruption, and this is the information when you get old. No, this is an increase of Vata. There is an increase of disruption. And this disruption is a disruption of coherence. So there is a loss of complexity. So we have to maintain this complexity, and how we can maintain this complexity, for example, with exercising, people exercise our mind to keep always in contact with an environment that changes continuously in some way that we can continuously, challenge our capacity of adaptation. Adaptation is the meaning of nature, and the health is the optimal adaptation. And now I want to cite this beautiful shloka of Sushruta, as the moon, the sun, and earth support the cosmos with releasing, receiving, and dispersing, likewise, kapha, pitta, and vata support the body. And this is exactly the mechanism of adaptation that we can again find in nature, and that from which we have to take inspiration for our activity as a physician, as a scientist. So, up to now, we have seen that there are commonalities between modern science and Vedic science and Ayurveda. And now we can, Ayurveda and yoga and other things. And these commonalities were string theory, Samkhya and Adardashana, breaking of symmetry, Purusha Prakriti interaction, primordial vibration, Raja Sattva Tamas Om, matter reality, Panchamahabhuta reality, perception as a phase interference, Guna, coherence as a system resilience, Ojas. So we have these commonalities from which we can start now to see the relationship with, for example, neurology. We arrived at the point. So Ayurveda normally, when we speak about in the modern view, we speak about neurology. We used to speak about Vata Vyadi, but Vata Vyadi describes all disorders and disease resulting from a primary alteration of the Vata dosha. And in fact, Charaka says that disorder of the central and peripheral nervous system and of the musculoskeletal system are included, but in relation to the capillary spread of the action of the dosha vata in the body, disorder generated by disturbance of it in practically all areas of the body, Sarvanga Kupita Vata, are to be considered too. So mainly Vata Vyadi means a lot of things. Everything that moves, that has an alteration can be a Vata Vyadi. So it's very clear that equating neurology as understood by modern medicine, disorders of the morphological and functional alteration of the nervous system is limiting, is incomplete, and can be also misleading. So we cannot equate Vata Vyadi with neurology, as it is done many times, unfortunately. But if you look at what happens in the modern medicine, in the modern neurology, in the last year, we have seen that recent evidence has shown that pathology of the nervous system are not confined only and limited to the classical neurological nosology, but they branch also in other areas. For example, and there are deep interconnection between nervous, musculoskeletal, immune, and gastrointestinal areas. There are patients with multi-system rheumatic condition may present central and peripheral nervous system disease, such as spinal cord involvement or neurosecretory disorder, for example, in lupus. We have rheumatoid arthritis. In rheumatoid arthritis, there is a wide spectrum of neurological pathological conditions which are associated with rheumatoid arthritis, such as peripheral neuropathy, encephalopathy, myositis, nerve atrophy, and so on. Osteoarthritis. In osteoarthritis, the nervous system can modulate key aspects of joint pathology through the regulation of circadian rhythm, hypothalamic axis, and inflammatory metabolism. Moreover, the CNS is an important regulator of the gastrointestinal tract functions, whose balance determines or not the significant disability of onset of gastrointestinal problems. There is an increasing evidence of an important role of the gut microbiota, for example, also in the pathogenesis of neurological disease, such as stroke. There are patients with inflammatory and autoimmune neurological disorders, such as multiple sclerosis, often present gastrointestinal symptoms also of various systems. Inflammatory bowel disease has been frequently associated with autoimmune rheumatic disease, such as rheumatoid arthritis or psoriatic arthritis. And there is a close relationship between systemic sclerosis, emotional stress, altered autonomic system, and gastrointestinal disorders. So modern medicine starts seeing this kind of relationship. But if you look very carefully, all these references, all this relationship has been already described by Charaka. If you find Charaka Samhita, chapter 28, Chikitsastana, and the Vata Vyadi chapter, you find all this and more. So biomedicine is moving unknowingly towards Ayurveda view, confirming its scientific validity through its own means, its own parameters. However, there is a fundamental problem is persisting. And this problem is that for epistemological and methodological reasons of modern medicine continues to see the associated diseases as, as a single diseases, and not as without a clear vision of the logic of general causal relationship. Because modern medicine does not refer to fundamental ontological principle for a unitary description of reality, but consider reality as made out of separate and independent parts. On the contrary, we know that the thought underlying Ayurveda is relational and systemic. There are no individual parts that are separate from the other. On the contrary, every single part expresses the deepest essence of the whole. Therefore, despite the evidence linking the various specialist areas and the dense network of information, modern medicine has a lot of difficulties in grasping this unitary vision, which is typical of Ayurveda. And this brings to a consequence. Modern medicine, even in the presence of multi-specialist association, therapeutic strategies are applied independently by neurologists, rheumatologists, gastroenterologists. And this fragmented approach is not only a problem for the patient, but is raising many questions even with modern medicine. There are a lot of colleagues in modern medicine that do not know how to deal with this continuous evidence of the network reality of a connection of symptoms. So modern medicine needs a new conceptual vision to overcome these limits, which are imposed by the reductionism, which has been its characteristic in the last centuries. And this is the context in which Ayurveda, through the interfacing of that we were speaking about, can provide the epistemological support and guidance necessary for the definition of this new scientific and medical paradigm. Let's see, for example, what we can say about Alzheimer's disease. This is a double brain. From one side, you see a healthy brain, and from another side, you see a picture of an advanced Alzheimer's. If you look from an Ayurvedic point of view and the Guna of the morphology of these two different brain, we can see that Snigdha, Lakshnam, Rido, and Guru are typical of the healthy brain, which in some way at the end are significant for the presence of Jala and Prithvi, earth and water, which are a manifestation of Kapha, which is, if you touch the brain, a brain is some kind of very Kapha, because it's dense, it's soft, it's a kind of jelly style. But if we look at the Guna from the advanced Alzheimer, the morphology, we have Ruksha, we have Kara, Katina, Laku, which are expression of Vayu, and Akash, which is an expression of Vata. So we have a transformation from a morphological point of view of the brain of an Alzheimer patient from Kapha to Vata. which can be obvious, but for an Ayurvedic person. But it's not so obvious what from a modern medicine, the fact that from this morphological change, you have a correspondence in the clinical symptomatology of an Alzheimer patient, because the clinical symptomatology of an Alzheimer patient, you can see here 10 of the main symptoms: memory loss, problem with the language, difficulty in performing familiar tasks, often misplacing regular items of utility, decrease of poor judgment, frequent changes in behavior or mood, problems with abstract thinking, disorientation to place and time, major loss of initiative, change in personality. All of these are change of prana, udana, and vyana, which are changes of vata, are vata alteration. So we find the same kind of guna and dosha alteration that we can find in the morphology, we find in parallel in the clinical symptomatology, which from an Ayurvedic point of view is something which is very normal, which is absolutely not normal from a medical point of view, but can be very interesting, very important. This vision of the clinical symptomatology of the Alzheimer patients from this point of view is reflecting, by the way, the loss of structural compactness and coherence observed in the morphology, and that we were speaking before, and we had, that loss of the coherence was given by an increase of vata. But the funny things and the most interesting thing for me, I worked in the United States for many years in Alzheimer's disease. So I worked on this a lot, very well, a lot of time, is that this vision is equal and is the same at every level. For example, if you look at the microscopical level, you can see the same features. On the B side, you have a normal brain. On the A side, you have an Alzheimer brain with a specific characteristic. The one with the long arrow are called the plaques, plaques of amyloid plaques, while the one with the short arrows are the neurofibrillary tangles. That means neurons that are characterized by tangles of neurofilaments, which are absolutely disorganized in the body of the dead body of the neuron. And while the neurofibrillary tangles are broken systems of neurites that are disrupted, and they are disrupted all around a center core of amyloid, which we will see what is important also from an Ayurvedic point of view to consider this situation. These are other pictures in which you can see what we were speaking about: the disorganization, the loss of coherence, the manifestation of guna of vata. You can see here there is a plaque you can see that there is a different kind of disruption of neurites, presence of plaques, neurofibrillary tangles, and dead neurons with this mass of neurofilaments that are present inside the dead neurons. If we look at the healthy neuron, these are healthy neurons, and we describe them, and we try to describe them from an Ayurvedic point of view, we can say that from a morphological point of view, they present Laku, Ruksha, and Kara, which in some way are the expression of Vayu and Akash. That means that they are expression of Vata from a morphological point of view. But from a functional point of view, they are expressing Pitta, because they are Sukshma, they are they are very Tikshna, they are Vishada, they are penetrating, the impulses are penetrating everywhere, they are going everywhere. And so they have this kind of Sukshma, Tikshna, and Vishada, which are representing Tejas and Jala, and then Pitta. So the balance between Pitta and Vata is, from an Ayurvedic point of view, is the healthy functionment of a neuron. And a neuron has to have this kind of morphology and this kind of function, which are representing the healthy neuron. As a matter of fact, these healthy neurons, they are immersed in lipids. In fact, the brain is cup, and all the cells that compose the supporting cells of the brain, they are made out mainly of lipid, which have the capacity to counteract the excess of Vata and of Pitta. So the balance of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha in the brain, they are able to maintain this alteration, this function. If there is something wrong, something that alters this situation, we have an alteration of the function of the neurons. So what happens, for example, here in an Alzheimer brain? In this in this picture, for example, we can see that there is an increase of which are the morphological characteristic of the single neurons, which are increasing laku, in ruksha, in kara, but that are not connected anymore with a coherence, because we have laku, ruksha, and kara, which are not connected with a coherence anymore. So they are not connected with a shape. Why? Because there is a loss of function, a loss of Sukshma, Tikshna, and Vishada. The Agni, which was keeping this Sukshma, Tikshna, and Vishada, is lost. And what we have? We have what, from an Ayurvedic point of view, it can be the description of this neuropathological slide, which are Pichila, Manda, and Stula. Pichila because, for example, the amyloid core, they are very pitchy, very sticky. They are, they are ama, around which everything is sticking around. Manda because there is slowing down of all the function and the impulse, and Stula because there are continuous interactions of the impulse. So as you can see, this vision can give us a lot of insights on from an Ayurvedic, but also from a modern point of view, on how to act on a disease like Alzheimer's. Of course, considering the fact that when there is a lesion of an organ, it's very difficult to recover the organ. Also, on the electron microscope view, we have the same. You see the healthier area is organized, of neurofilament is organized and coherent. But while if you have an area in which tangles are forming, you can see that there is a disruption of this coherence, and there is a loss of coherence and a loss of structure, and what is with a lot of Vata features. There is emptiness, there are interruption and other things. Why this Alzheimer's disease? I mean, something that I had in mind while I was still a neurologist. I'm still a neurologist, but when I was still a neuroscientist, and I worked a lot on this in this direction. Because when you have an increase of Vata, of course, you have a decrease of Kapha, and an increase of Vata is equal to a membrane lipid degeneration. And actually, this is what happens in Alzheimer's disease, because the amyloid plaque are formed by amyloid fibrils. And these amyloid fibrils, they derive from amyloid precursor protein. Amyloid precursor protein is a transmembrane protein, is a contact protein which is present everywhere. It's a very important protein for life, which is normally cleaved by some enzymes, normally to be regenerated. But since it is a transmembrane protein, the amyloid protein, there is a part of the protein which is in the membrane, which is hydrophobic. If you have a decrease in the thickness of the membrane, you expose some areas of amyloid to be cut and secreted outside, which being hydrophobic, they start forming, complex and cumulus of not digested elements. And this is the origin of the amyloid plaques. And the amyloid plaques, the presence of these amyloid plaques, of this AMA, which is because this is a real metabolic product, so it's a real AMA from an Ayurvedic point of view. This presence of this AMA, of these amyloid plaques, disrupt the network of the neurites, and with retrograde death, it kills the neurons. And in fact, all the neurofibrillary tangles that forms inside the neurons, they derives from the death of the alteration of the tipping of the neurons and the interconnection between the neurons. This is something that when I was a neuroscientist, I was not imagining that Ayurveda had the solution and I had the vision of this thing, because otherwise I would have been very famous, because I would have gone immediately to the point instead of waiting years and years after, when, for example, years after, we have a lot of evidence that there is a membrane alteration in Alzheimer brain. With the help of Ayurveda, this evidence for modern medicine could have been much bigger before. But it was not an alteration only on the neurons, but it was a general alteration in all the membrane of the system. In fact, there is an alteration in red blood cell membrane, in platelet, in all the membrane, in all the lipid, system of the Alzheimer's. Actually, what we have done, we have done a study with Dosha Della Libera, which is another neurologist, our associate, on the biomarkers in neurodegenerative disease. What we did is that we took patients with moderate cognitive impairment, and then we went to measure the presence of the microglial microvesicle in the CSF, in the cerebrospinal fluid. These microvesicles, they are fragments of astrocytes, and they in some way are index of the stabilization of the membrane. And what we found is that the people with Vata Prakriti, they had a much more presence of these microglial microvesicles than Pitta and Kapha. And this is something which is very important, because a current Vata equilibrium may reflect in a membrane damage, and it may give us hints to the therapy and to the prognosis of the patients according to the Prakriti. This study of biomarkers and in some way interfaced with the Ayurveda clinical phenotyping may help in discovering this kind of prognostic factors and therapeutic factors, because we are able to stratify the population in a different way. Another thing that was done by Dacha always is this observation about multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis, if you take the MRI, the multiple sclerosis, we may have this MRI showing lesions of a different type. So we can have a type in which, for example, like here, in which you have a very point dotted lesions, they can come and go. They are not much consistent. Then instead we may have lesions which are very much consistent with that are around the ventriculi. They are very sharp and they are very very penetrating in the depth of the brain tissue. Or we may have, for example, big lesions, round-shaped lesions, stable lesions, very big, which have different, of course, morphologic characteristics. So we could say that the first one is a Vata type, the second Pitta type, and the third one of Kapha type. What was really interesting is it was to see that there was absolutely correspondence with the clinical progression of the disease, because Vata was relapsing remitting, while Pitta was progressing relapsing, and Kapha was primary and secondary progressing. That means that while the first one, the Vata, could be, one of those multiple sclerosis in which you have one symptoms that come now with a poussée, and then after years you don't see anything. And people may have a multiple sclerosis, and they may have some kind of very passive, very transient symptoms. Or you have those multiple sclerosis that are the progressing relapsing, in which we have very acute clinical presentation with very disabling and severe presentation, which are represented by the RMI. Or you can have those those very slow and smooth progression of the disease. And what we found is that there is a kind of correlation between the morphology and the clinical presentation. This was another thing that was very important. Now, a few words about yoga and neurology. I wrote Beyond Asana because we know that asana are something that are very useful in neurological problem. But what I would like to say is to stress the point, the fact that yoga is something that is fundamental in not only neurology, but in any kind of problems, of medical problems, and that yoga is not something that has to be limited to neurological disease or just to disease. If we take the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and we take the first 4 Patanjali Yoga Sutra, in the first 4 Patanjali Yoga Sutra, you find the whole meaning of yoga and the whole meaning of Ayurveda, actually. And we take the second, Yoga's Chitta Vritti Nirodha, for example, which is very famous, and we extract a little bit Chitta Vritti Nirodha. We know that means, yoga stills the movement of minds. There are many, subtle interpretation about Sanskrit, but let's say that in general, this is the meaning. So yoga is still the movement of mind. But the funny thing is that in Ayurveda, you find a lot of reference about yoga. In Charaka, there is a full chapter of correlation with yoga. But I wanted to take, instead of Charaka, the first shloka of the Ashtangardaya, where we have this Ragadi Rogan that says that the Apurva Vaidya is the one that has to destroy all the disease caused by Ragadi Rogan, all the disease caused by Raga. So Raga, also according to the Tantra Yukti, Raga is the base of all the disease, and Raga is the urge of passion that encompasses the entire range of emotion. Now, the urge of passions is the movement of mind, is the movement of manas. So yoga and Ayurveda, they say the same thing, putting at the basis of all the disturbances, the mind, manas. In fact, manas is, as in Sharirasthana, is very well expressed, of Charaka, is defined by perceptions. So manas, the only thing that manas is doing from the morning to evening is collecting perception and putting together perception and elaborating the perception. What we call thought is a continuous elaboration of memory, and builds model of reality. And these models of reality are done by this continuous taking the perception, taking the confrontation with what is in the past, with experience, and making models, predictive models of reality, which have to be presented to in some way to buddhi to choose the better behavior, which has to be a behavior, an action that is the expression of balanced manas, adequate behavior, lifestyle, and so a correct adaptation to health. So this is what is the function of manas. The function of manas is this, that when manas it works well, it should help buddhi in choosing the better model to have a adequate behavior, lifestyle, and a correct adaptation, as we have seen this before, in health. And manas is, in balanced state is sakya. When we have instead a problem with this, when manas since it's confined and is confluent with perception, tends to be polluted by values which displease perception, leading to raga. And in fact, as Charaka says, the pathogenic factors in the body are Vata, Pitta, Kapha, but in the mind are Rajas and Tamas. If we have this problem with minds become self-referent, keep on moving too much, and it will bring to a behavior which is called praknya parada. That means a behavior which is self-referent, is not expressing the real, relationship with reality. So, thinking that manas and sharira are one, and manas is a padartha, an object, the manas configuration of its subtle property resonates with the gross constituent, with the pancha mahabhuta of the body, defining its status. This is something that is very clear also for in Samkhya. So when we have a balanced manas, we have harmony. And harmony stands for inner capacity to adapt. And so we have seen that adaptation means healthy immunity, that means ojas. While when we have an unbalanced manas, we have a disgregation. So the balancing, we have to balance life. So what I was saying in the beginning, yoga is not only for disease, but it's just to have health in our life. So sattva manas is in some way expressed with what we call awareness, and this awareness becomes from a physical point of view adaptive behavior and adaptive physiology. This awareness with adaptive behavior, adaptive physiology became coherence with the environment, and this coherence with the environment becomes health, ojas in general, a perfect balancing between body, human being, and environment. That is called svasta, which is an emergent concord from a physical point of view, using the words of modern mathematical modeling. We can call an emergent phenomena of a complex adaptive system. This complex adaptive system is vasta in the moment which is able to adapt, and so it expresses health. So some clinical cases, just to finish my presentation, what we have done in Italy. What we have done in Italy, on the basis of this vision of the COMS, of the collaborative medicine and science, we actually not we, but especially Carmen Tosto, who is the co-director of Ayurvedic Point, ideated a technique that puts together all these things, and it's called Prana Marma therapy. Is an innovative technique that merge all the things that we have spoken about in this lecture. And we will show you some results that we are obtaining. Prana Marma therapy is a unique Marma point treatment techniques that use the point described by Sushruta. it involves the identification of precise sequence of Marma point to be stimulated and connected together according to a precise logic. The treatment logic, of course, considers the Marma point according to their action on the 5 vayu and the 3 dosha, because the fact is that the prana that is currently circulating in the body through nadi, according to yoga, to srotamsi, according to Ayurveda, this prana can accumulate, or expand, or contract in the Marma point. And with this treatment, we are able to redistribute the prana in the system. In fact, this treatment involves a direct and specific action on each selected point, following a linear path, connecting them with a specific prana Marma therapy logic. And it can be performed using fingers or hands or specific instrument according to the needs of the case. In the following case that I will show you, PMT has been performed using the cash ball instrument. These treatments were, especially the first 2 that I will show you, that are with sequelae of stroke. In this treatment, in the same session, was done local podikiri was done, and then prana Marma therapy with cash ball, stimulating the Marma according to a specific predetermined logic of sequence. In this case, we have the Marma master that was busted. There is all the Marma points which have been involved in this case that you can see, and the direction was anulomana from the line from the top, and then the circular movement on the Marma points. And this you can see that there are 2 different, there are several actually, but in this case there are 2 different type of cash ball, which one is bigger for the bigger Marma points, and another one is smaller for the smaller size Marma point. And in this way, the use of the cash ball instrument was done because it was with this instrument we were able to connect the sequence of the Marma through different specific lines. In this way, we were able to direct and channel the flow of prana in specific and desired directions. It's a very nice techniques that it works wonderfully with a very short even time of for the results. But the most important thing is that it works on old lesions, on patients with had old, for example, stroke. You know, in Italy, we do not have all the facility that you have in India. So when a person with a stroke comes to Ayurveda, it comes not as at the beginning, but it comes after. Now they are coming pretty earlier compared to some time ago. But normally we get these patients that are coming to us after years that they had the stroke. And for a modern medicine point of view, there is nothing to do. You know, there is this problem of the hand, because the major problem when you have an hemiplegia is the hand. Because you have this walking like with a I don't remember in English how to say, but with the leg that is following like they are cutting the grass. But the problem is the hand, and to regain the functionality of the hand. Now we will show you two cases. The first case is a patient of age 50. In 2017, he had an hemorrhagic stroke of the basal ganglia. So this patient had several treatments. Normally what we do is with these patients is alternating Ruksha and Snigdha Ayurvedic treatment according to the needs of the patients. And then we start with the session of Prana Marma therapy. Now you see, this is one, you see, this is how Carmen used the instrument. And then in the Marma, he has this kind of circular movement, and then he insists in particular areas. Sorry for the quality of the picture, but you know, we have to take this picture with the low light. One very peculiar thing of this treatment is the capacity for the patients to open their hands after years that this patient keep the hand closed. And for them, it's like a miracle to be able to open their hands again, even if it's just for a moment, even if it's just maybe they cannot control completely the hand. But can you imagine you see the change the instrument according to the Marma point, which has to be stimulated. But can you imagine the benefit to the articulation of these patients, the fact that we are able with this kind of treatment also to dissolve the calcification that there are in the articulation, and so on. In this other, you can see that there is a much closer, sorry for the light, a much closer view to what she is doing at the end. But this is what is the hand at the end. You see? The hand is open. And the hand is open in this way for some time, then gradually come back. Of course, this treatment, they have to be done in a series. The same patients, I want to show you what is the difference between the first one is at the beginning. The second one is after one session of Prana Marma therapy, and the other one, the third one, is after 3 sessions of Prana Marma therapy. You see, there is a lot of limitation in at the shoulder and at the end also. The second one, you see, there is a much better control of the arm, and the end. You see, at the end start moving, start opening in some time. But look at after 3 times. After 3 times is incredible. And these patients came to us after years, after 3 years from, this is from 2009, actually, see, it was 2019. And this is, and they had in 2017, yes, so 2 years and a half. And see also the hand, how is much more less rigid, you know. after only 3 sessions. Look now. Was absolutely not able to do something like this before. Okay. The second patient instead is something that is really, this patient came to us after one hemorrhagic stroke in 2007. In 2015, he had another ischemic stroke. And he came to us in 2018, and we started the treatment, the same kind of protocol, Ruksha Snigdha, but then this patient had much more Prana Marma therapy done. And now you see how this thing worked. Look at the end of this patient. And think that this patient, after one hemorrhagic stroke, another ischemic stroke from the same side, he had the end like this. And he came to us after 3 years after the first ischemic stroke. And it works. He came to us, he was using the Stample, and now he's not using Stample anymore. It works normally. The leg almost completely recovered. Look at what it does now. Something that is absolutely unthinkable for a patient that had a stroke. And another thing that show in some way how these patients completely regained his autonomy. And now this patient is about is in this case very serious case, a patient, a female, 50 years, and she had in 2016 a surgery for exeresis of a big neurinoma of a left acoustic nerve, and then she had as a sequela a deficit in the 7th cranial nerve with paralysis, hypotonia of the left hemiphase. You know, there was not, the problem was the eye was not closing, the eye was dry, irritated, and in this case, Prana Marma therapy was done at the face. This patient had also other treatment like Mukha Bhyanga, Nasya Pratimarsha, Nasya, Gandusha, another thing just to lower Vata. This case is a very serious case because there is a lesion of a nerve, and is more what she feels than what you can see. This is the beginning, and this is the second, and this is the third one. But at the third one, you can see what you can see is that there is a much more mobility of the face in this last one compared to the first one. The eye is a little bit closed, and also, you know, this patient had not many, I think about something like 5 or 6 application of Prana Marma therapy. The last thing that I want to show you instead is a pilot clinical study that we made on pediatric acute post-surgical delirium. This is a state of dissociated consciousness of the child following surgery conducted under general anesthesia. And this is a very problematic situation because, you know, these child are intubated, and when they wake up, if there is this delirium, it's a kind of panic. It's even difficult to take out the tube from the mouth and you know to wake up the baby. And this happens very frequently in when we have this kind of pediatric surgery. It happens with a frequency that can arrive up to 80%. So we analyzed with one of our associates that she's an anesthesiologist, and she was following all these patients during the surgery. She was performing the Prana Marma therapy. It was 7 minutes, 5 minutes, the Prana Marma therapy just after the surgery. We analyzed the flow, the logic of this prana alteration that was in this post-surgical delirium. And we realized that there was a problem of course, prana vata flow. And Carmen elaborated this sequence of Marma point to be associated. In this case, we're using only fingers. And the study was done on 36 children aged between 8 and 14 years, average 14.4. They underwent first-class anesthesia for all the children for the surgical correction of flat foot. There was a preoperative assessment. The patient was visited by an expert Ayurvedic doctor. The practice was determined, and 18 children underwent to the application of the sequence of Marma point stimulation between the end of the surgery and the awakening. And the sequence was lasting about 5 to 7 minutes. 18 children did not receive Marma treatment, but they had all the interventions to the external environment. They were reducing Vata. So there were, blankets, soft light, warming, and so on. And these were the results. So we had the gradual recovery of spontaneous respiration and state of awareness. We had in the control, 3 were gradual recovery and 18 had delirium. In the treated, 15, they had the gradual recovery of spontaneous respiration, and only 3 they had delirium. And the fact that these 3 had delirium was also because the problem was due to the fact that the doctor who was performing the Prana Marma therapy had at the same time 2 different operatory rooms to follow, so it was not completely concentrated. But from a statistical point of view, the difference is already huge. And this was confirming the effect on prana and on selected Marma point stimulation. Then we went to see the Wacha scale and the PAD scale, where 2 scales to see the degree of effect on the delirium. So from a diagnosis point of view and for the delirium point of view, and all these scales showed a significant difference in favor of the children that have been treated with the Prana Marma therapy. And this pilot study shows the effectiveness of Marma point stimulation inducing a gradual recovery of consciousness, as well as spontaneous respiratory function, in significantly reducing the insurgence of post-operative or acute delirium in children, avoiding the risk of psychological as well as physical complication in the use of additional sedative drugs. And of course, this is a study that confirmed the efficacy of the Prana Marma therapy, this unique technique elaborated and ideated by Carmen Tosto. And with this, I finish my presentation, and I'm ready to questions if there are any. I hope that I did not take much time because it was long. But
thank you very much, sir, for an excellent blending of fundamental concepts of modern science and Ayurveda science, and also a comprehensive presentation on various aspects of Ayurvedic concepts as well as modern neurology. And wonderfully enough, we could get your clinical experiences with therapies. Thank you so much, sir. Now the presentation is open for discussions. If anyone has any questions, we can take them.
looks like there are no questions.
Okay.
Dear sir, can I ask?
Yes.
So thank you very much for really enlightening presentation. I am Dr. Hemant Bhargav. I am a faculty of yoga. I am basically a modern medicine doctor, and I have done PhD in yoga. So in your presentation, sir, you have presented some disorders where you have assessed their prakriti in multiple sclerosis. So I would like to know, what tool did you use to assess prakriti?
We used there are two tools. One is just a pure clinical assessment that was done by different Vaidyas, and then we were in some way matching our view. But sometime we have to give to authorities and to for the publication of other things something that is more objective. And we developed a tool, a questionnaire. A questionnaire. We developed our own, which has been used also in clinical studies published. For example, Professor Antonella Delle Fave published in the European Journal of Integrative Medicine a study on psychology and connected with the prakriti, where it was used our model of questionnaire, which has been statistically validated in some way that we can give also from an objective point of view for the modern science, something that corroborate, the clinical view of the physician, which being subjective is not accepted by modern science.
And sir, secondly, sir, this Marma point theory was very interesting. Can you tell us the exact reference, sir, where there is mention of these Marma points and their therapeutic applications?
No, the exact reference you can find is Sushruta Samhita. There is a whole chapter about the description of Marma points. Then there is the whole culture of Varma points, which are not the Marma points, which are more related to the culture of south of India. But there is no actually a reference on how to work on. And in fact, the uniqueness of this treatment has been that the deep study of Carmen brought to a model on how it works. Now we are trying to understand also why it works from an Ayurvedic point of view. But it is because there are many traditions that says that you can work on some Marma points, pushing, vibrating, circulating. There are many information. But The difference here is not only the way you stimulate, but is to connect in a functional way one marma with the other in such a way that there is an information that is given to the organism. Because this is the thing. Our organism is a system of information, and each thing that you do to our organism is an information that is elaborated. And so the Marma points are very special point in which the information gets really true. It's very thick, it's very, very penetrating, the information. And if you connect this information, these different stimuli in a coherent message, then you give a message to the whole organism to react in some way. In that way, in the way that I've shown you, the message was how to redirect the flow of prana to regain the movement. But there are many other things that you can reach through this kind of logic.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, there is one question from Dr. Umesh. Sir, have you encountered any drug interactions when you use Ayurveda medications along with modern medications?
Let's say we have to be careful because there are some known biochemical effect of some herbs that in some way we have to take in consideration when you make a combined therapy. Because of course, in Italy, we are very much aware of this because we do not have the whole pharmacopoeia of India available. Because for a series of limitations, which are, the European laws about the import of herbs, that, each country has its own legislation. So we do not have the whole pharmacopoeia of India. For example, in Italy, just to give you an idea, we cannot have a Guducci, Tinospora cordifolia, we cannot have. And so, and sometimes we face the fact that we have to integrate the Ayurvedic therapy with the modern therapy. So the trick is to read the modern medicine in an Ayurvedic way, in such a way that you analyze the effect of the modern medicine from an Ayurvedic point of view, and in that way you are able to combine better the two systems. This is the way that we normally do. Actually, we teach this also in our school because the director of the course of our school, Dr. Munita, I think that she is present also here in the discussion. She elaborated. She's taking this kind of teaching. She elaborated a logic by which we can analyze modern medicine using the Ayurvedic logic in such a way that we can match the things.
Sir, there is one more question from Praveen. Can you speculate on the mechanism of action of Basti therapy?
The internal Basti or the external Basti? The
internal Basti. Maybe in brief.
Okay.
Sir.
Yes. This is the problem. This is the problem. Okay. The fact is this. The root of everything is the analysis of Guna. So whatever we do has properties which are expressed by Guna. And so the key of everything is the interaction between the Guna of the treatment and the Guna of the patients. So this is in very brief. Then we could discuss that Pakvaja is the site of Vata and all the other things that mainly there is Ruksha. And so, but it's always a matter of Guna analysis. For this reason, Ayurveda is not local. The Ayurveda intervention is not local because, for example, Basti is very good in Alzheimer's disease or in osteoporosis. But why? Because if you analyze it from a Guna point of view, you realize that this is the why. And you realize that if you want an effect on ruksha of vata, you have to go in the place where there is more ruksha of vata, that is pakvaja. That is the thing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Sir, I think one last question we can take.
Yes.
Sir, can you share your experience in treating Parkinson's disease with Ayurveda?
Parkinson's disease with Ayurveda. Parkinson's disease in Ayurveda is another big issue, that we have a lot of patients with Parkinson's disease, and mainly the problem with Parkinson. Parkinson is actually a different because the problem is the definition, because we call Parkinson, and what we call Parkinson in Ayurveda may have different kind of expression according to the single patients. So we have a Parkinson that is characterized by tremor, Parkinson that is characterized by instead of stillness. We have dementia associated, and so we have to look at the Parkinson, look at the patient, and try to find more than the dosha, the guna and the mahabhuta which are affected. If it's more affected akasha, or if it's more affected vayu, and according to that we have to design the treatment. And of course what it comes out not a protocol, but a very specific treatment for each patient. And of course, we may have general treatment that we know from a tradition, we know also from modern medicine, we know that Mukuna pruriens, Kapikachu, we can use it because there is a source of dopa. But the problem is not just giving the dopa to this patient, but to understand why in that patient's dopamine neurons stop to produce dopamine. So it's a problem of agni mainly.
Yeah.
No? And we have to understand with each patient why this agni is decreased, and why this agni is decreased in that area and not in another area. And so this derives from the prakriti. The problem is always that there is an alteration at the level of bhuta, then at the level of dosha, but what we see is filtered by the prakriti. So it's the prakriti that decide how the alteration is expressed in what we call disease. But the origin is at a deeper level. And this is the two different words that I described at the beginning. One level, you see what are the objects. In another level, you see what are the relationship. And Parkinson's disease is in the world of object. The alteration which are at the root of Parkinson's disease, they are what is in the world of relationship.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir, would you like to share some of your experiences with the yoga, in neurology, and also do you synthesize yogic practices in terms of doshas, or whatever the approach that you might be adopting?
We have we have an outpatient clinic in Milano. And what we do is to couple the Ayurvedic therapy with the yoga therapy. And of course, there is an expert that follow the patients, that is in contact with the doctor, and according to the vision of the doctor and of the expert in yoga, there are specific asanas which are prescribed to the patient to do for certain period along with the Ayurvedic therapy. And this is something which is very important, because and this is something which is given to the patients as a program to do at home, and then to be checked after 1 month of therapy. And we change the yoga therapy continuously according to the change also of Ayurvedic therapy, according to the progression of the patients. So we are trying to make a very close interaction between yoga and Ayurveda, because they say the same thing from two different levels. Again, another different level. Ayurveda, yoga is more on the sukshma level than Ayurveda. So it goes deeper.
Yes, sir.
And so we have this kind of approach. I mean, yoga is so fundamental for life, for everyone life, everywhere. Even the West is realizing this now.
Sir, thank you so much for a very informative presentation, very enlightening. Dr. Shivarama, our HOD, had to go to another meeting, so he just left in between. Sir, we would be very happy if you could take more classes for us in the perspectives that you have talked about. Maybe discussing more about the mechanism of action of many of our therapies, correlating Guna with some of the theories of physics that you brought about, and then maybe devise, because we are also trying to strengthen the academic and conceptual basis of Ayurveda and Yoga description of the disease and the mechanism of to explain the healing process through the Ayurvedic and yogic perspectives, and then give a very good explanation with the modern science, so that it really becomes an integrated approach. So you seem to be very knowledgeable in this area, and we would be we're more than happy to get associated with you academically. And we look forward to more of your lectures. And whenever you're in India, you're please welcome to NIMHANS, to the department. Please have a look at how things are here, and then how we can. Yes.
In November I will be there. So in November we can meet.
Then I think you can keep some time for NIMHANS on your visit. I know, because when you come from such a far place, you have packed appointments. So kindly spare some time for us. We'll be very happy to have you with us here for some time and have a look at what we are doing. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all of.
Thank you, sir. We are really grateful to you, sir. It was a wonderful synthesis of neurology, Ayurveda, and yoga, which we, it was very enlightening. Saw it for the first time. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. From on behalf of all the departments today, I thank all the faculty and staff and students who have attended this lecture and made it a success. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.